What causes inspiration and imagination? Are these phenomena personally germinated seeds of self-realized fantasy, which just happen to manifest within the minds of random individuals? Are they always independent of any exterior influences and/or hidden whispering muses? From my own personal standpoint, it has become impossible for me to detach the complexity of the Lovecraftian mythos from that of supernatural and magical intervention into the life and home of H.P. Lovecraft from an early age. Lovecraft's traumatic childhood was very much the seed of a shamanic journey, almost as if destiny or a hidden hand, or even a tentacle-guided one, moved his life along for a specific purpose. Yet Providence seems such an unlikely place for the self-fulfillment of one's own otherworldly dharma. As my own journey into the occult and magic developed in tandem with my exposure to and interest in the work of H.P. Lovecraft, I've come to consider the Yankee conservative of Puritan stock to be one of the greatest occult influences of my own life. And I'm not the only one. Millions of others feel the same way. It matters not to me, and to countless others like me, that Lovecraft was, from what we can tell, in denial of such notions of non-material realms and forces impacting upon our day-to-day reality. It makes absolutely no difference how Lovecraft himself felt about magic and sorcery. He still brought it about. Marlon Brando, for example, hated his role as Stanley Kowalski in the 1951 movie A Streetcar Named Desire. Brando's opinion mattered not, as the rest of the world loved it. The same can be said for Lovecraft's near fanatical distaste for concepts such as the supernatural and sorceries. Something beyond H.P. Lovecraft's beliefs was in charge of that particular process. He was meant to be there to grab hold of it. Towards the latter half of 1919, the British occultist Aleister Crowley, who was preparing to bring to an end his exile in the United States, was separated by H.P. Lovecraft only by the short body of water known as Block Island Sound, which connects the eastward extension of Long Island Sound to the westward extension of Rhode Island Sound. While the Great Beast 666 was in Montauk, the far end of the eastern end of Long Island, only 50 miles away, H.P. Lovecraft was presenting his short story, Dagon, for wider readership within Weird Tales magazine. A story which is generally considered to be the first tale of what was to become known as the Cthulhu mythos. This was the culmination of an era of transformation for Lovecraft, which began in 1917 when he attempted to enlist in the United States Army, but failed to do so as a result of his mother threatening to reveal a secret of Lovecraft's life which would have prevented him from enlisting. Just over the water in Montauk, on Long Island, Crowley had sequestered himself away from his New York friends and associates so as to communicate uninterrupted with his holy guardian angel, Aiwass, leaving a trail of unpaid debts, discarded women, and the now legendary, if not outrageous, escapades in his wake. Crowley's final months in the United States were one of a sense of his own failure, coupled with the very possibility of facing criminal prosecution upon his return to Britain on account of his activities within German, American and Irish Republican political circles while in New York. The precise details of Crowley's magical retreat at Montauk are hard to ascertain, yet there are some deeper elements of synchronicity which the close geographic and psychic proximity of the two men may have shared unknowingly. In some ways, it is as if Crowley was subconsciously passing the baton across Block Island Sound over to Lovecraft in Providence, who was at last bringing his own future magical tradition, in the guise of fiction, into its first proper process of distillation. Just as so many artistic, philosophical and other movements, apparently on occasion, do seem to coalesce by means of some manner of subconscious osmosis into certain locations at just the right time, one has to ask what forces drove Crowley to perform his final major magical working while in the United States, adjacent to the same body of water which ebbed upon the shores of Lovecraft's Rhode Island. 1919 was also a year of personal upheaval and change in H.P. Lovecraft's own personal life, as he struggled emotionally with the harsh realities of his mother Susie's admission to Butler Hospital in Providence, being the result of having visions of weird and fantastical creatures that rushed out from behind buildings and from corners at dark, according to her close friend and neighbour, Carla Hess. At the same time that his mother was undergoing these strange and bizarre visions, H.P. Lovecraft himself was developing as a writer and also taking advantage of his improving social life due to his enthusiastic membership within amateur journalism circles. Both men were on a journey into immortality, while the most important women within each of their lives, Lovecraft's mother Susie and Crowley's wife Rose, succumbed to madness and both died inside asylums. One can't help but feel an element of sacrifice the tragic demise of both these women represented within the visionary works of both Crowley and Lovecraft. While it is widely known that Crowley's wife Rose Edith Kelly was his greatest muse, having channeled in April 1904 what was to become the 3 chapters of the verse known as the Book of the Law via her communication with the entity Aiwass, one has to also ask if Sarah, Susan or Susie Phillips Lovecraft represented a similar role in her son's own mythos as a result of her own visions. No sooner had Aleister Crowley departed from his homeland that Lovecraft's own dream oracle gives us a hint that perhaps his public staunch atheism was not how he really felt about the full nature of life, consciousness and the cosmos. In early December 1919, Lovecraft had a dream about which he wrote, "In due time I intend to weave this picture into a story, as I wove another dream picture into the doom that came to Sarnath. I wonder, though, if I have a right to claim authorship of such things I dream. I hate to take credit when I did not really think out the picture within my own conscious wits." Clearly, Lovecraft took his dreaming more seriously than his own more mainstream biographers are willing to acknowledge. While Aleister Crowley within the Book of Lies states rather cryptically that dreams are without proportion, without good sense, without truth, so also is consciousness. Awake from dream, the truth is known. Awake from waking, the truth is the unknown. Is it possible that Crowley and Lovecraft had overlapping dream pictures during the latter half of 1919 while they were in such close magical proximity to one another? The year 1919 itself was a year of magical intensity, which was to have enormous global effects as a result of operations conducted by the Thule Society in Munich, occult and political events which resulted in social turmoil in Bavaria and which brought together emerging elements and personalities who would eventually give birth to the Third Reich. Magical energies were apparently abundant in 1919, and Lovecraft had clearly tapped into the sorcery of his own dream cycle with the publication of his short story, Dagon. The late American author Rosemary Ellen Guiley co-authored a book with Philip J. Imbrogno entitled The Vengeful Gin. The book makes the valid speculation that both Lovecraft and Crowley were in actuality possibly being guided by the Djinn, a kind of Islamic fairy meets demon. She makes the case that it is very possible that Crowley's Aiwass may well have been a Djinn. Added to this, the book also suggests that Lovecraft's own mythos bears an uncanny resemblance to the behaviours and traits associated with the Djinn as conveyed within Islamic folklore. The young Lovecraft was obsessed with all things Arabic as a child, to the point whereby he considered himself at one point to be a Muslim for a short time. Were Lovecraft and Crowley dreaming the same Djinn-saturated dreams across the octopus-filled waters from one another in 1919? Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan, was certainly open to the possibility when he wrote, "There is no doubt that Lovecraft was aware of rites not quite nameless, as the allusions in his stories are often identical to actual ceremonial procedures nomenclature, especially to those practiced around the turn of the 19th and 20th centuries." Did Crowley and Lovecraft communicate with the same Djinn at the same time?